Hello everyone and welcome to this bonus lesson. In this module, you've learned about moderation and mediation. These concepts are important to understand for when you want to create a conceptual model for your research. A conceptual model always exists out of one or more dependent variables and independent variables, and often one or more control variables. Moderator variables and mediator variables are less common. Drawing a conceptual model before you start your analysis enables you to structure your thought process and your research design. The golden rule of research design is usually the simpler, the better. The research design we used earlier in this model, that personality leads to engagement, which in turn leads to performance, or stated differently, engagement mediates the relationship between personality and performance, is already complicated enough to be published in a top journal. So you don't have to make difficult conceptual models, they will only make things harder for yourself. The same holds true for applied research. The simpler your research design, the better it is. Simpler models help you to focus on the main effects that you are researching and require less data. In addition, it is faster to get your results. The basic assumption here that you have already defined a specific research question and want to answer this question using analytics. The more specific the question is, the easier it is to analyze and to in the end answer. I'm also a big proponent of starting with a simple analysis that requires little data and then, later on, adding more data as it becomes available. This leads to some quick insights that you can act on now, and working with the data will help you in formulating new hypotheses that require more data and more complicated models. In addition, focus on the employees who play a key role in your research question. If you can pick between 200 or 2000 employees, I personally would go for the 200, as long as they are the most relevant employees for this specific research question. Another reason to go for a simple research design is the fact that these models are already quite tricky to measure. On the screen you see a simple moderation and mediation model. The statistical diagram is also included. In case of moderation, you test the main effect of both x and m on dependent variable y, but also the moderation effect of x times m, as this is expected to be stronger than the individual effects of x and m alone, hence moderation. Model 4 shows a simple mediation effect. In this case, it is hypothesized that engagement will lead to higher revenue both directly and via lower absence. This already requires you to test 4 different hypotheses. In this case, x in model 4 is engagement, which leads to y, revenue. X is also hypothesized to lead to revenue through lower absence, which is m, absence. M is thus hypothesized to partially mediate the relationship between engagement and revenue. In order for that to be mediation, all relationships need to be significant. In addition, when absence is added, the direct effect of engagement on revenue is expected to be lower, or even non-significant in case of full mediation. Now, I know that mediation and moderation are the more complicated models. If you just want to see whether x impacts y, so x is your independent, y is your dependent variable, that's already a good enough conceptual model. Start there and then later on add complexity. What I just showed you is that analyzing moderation and mediation using a statistical package is quite tricky. In case you're using SPSS or SAS, there is a very useful tool called Process by Andrew Hayes. This package helps you to identify your conceptual model and turn it into a statistical diagram that you can easily use in SPSS or SAS. This makes doing analyses like moderation and mediation much easier. In the document attached to this lesson, you'll find a wide range of conceptual models and relevant statistical diagrams. You'll likely only use the first few models in this document as they are the simpler ones. If you want to quickly use such a statistical model in SPSS or SAS, you can find the download link to the add-in software in the reading material as well. I do want to give you an example of a conceptual model that I made. About 5 years ago, I did a study for a corporate law firm that was looking to become, on the one hand, more profitable while also becoming more innovative. The managing partner in this case was very concerned about increasing competition and technological advancements and was convinced that they could, or at least in the long term, only stay on top when they were able to innovate. However, the pressure to perform and to deliver between 1300 to 1600 billable hours was expected to inhibit innovation. There was just too much work pressure to really innovate. So in this research, I tested how work engagement could lead to potentially higher job performance and innovative work behavior. And in this case, job performance was measured in billable hours, which are kept track in their internal systems. Innovative behavior was measured through a questionnaire, which correlated with the number of innovation projects an employee was involved in according to their direct manager. So that was also a solid way of measuring innovation. The conceptual model looked like this. In this model, you see two mediation relationships. Personal initiative mediates the relationship between work engagement on the one hand and job performance and innovative work behavior on the other hand. As control variables, age, gender, department and function group were included. Initially, I only included function groups. They seemed relevant because a full-time partner or a senior had a higher norm for billable hours compared to a junior or associate, and people higher in the hierarchy were also expected to have more freedom to display innovative work behavior. I added department as a control variable at a later point because that seemed to influence the person's number of billable hours. In fact, that was the strongest predictor of the number of billable hours, which was an interesting conclusion of itself. According to literature, time pressure has a lot of influence on the relationship between personal initiative and performance, and it also played a role in innovation. Organizational commitment was measured for the same reason. This is a solid conceptual model that you can test using survey data and internally stored data like the number of billable hours, function groups, seniority, number of years in the job, etc. In a later bonus lesson, I'll show you some interesting effects about these variables and how they relate with each other. Now, based on this conceptual model, I was able to distill a number of hypotheses. First of all, work engagement was hypothesized to lead to more personal initiative. Personal initiative was hypothesized to lead to more job performance and to more innovative work behavior. Because I was testing mediation, I also hypothesized that work engagement led straight to job performance, that work engagement was related with innovative work behavior, and then I included the mediation variable of personal initiative, where I hypothesized that personal initiative mediated the relationship between work engagement and job performance, and mediated the relationship between work engagement and innovative work behavior. So with such a simple conceptual model, I already have 7 hypotheses. And 7 hypotheses, to be honest, is quite a lot to test. So if you start with research, make it very, very simple. I would start with, hey, does work engagement lead to job performance? And does work engagement lead to innovative work behavior? That's already quite insightful. That's something that's relatively easy to measure. And that's something that already adds potentially value to the business if job performance and innovative work behavior are really the key aspects that the business is going for. Anyway, the take-home message is keep it simple. One final tip I wanted to give you. You're probably thinking now, wow, this is quite interesting, but how do I select those control variables and how do I know which variables I should add if I want to predict job performance? How do I know I should start with engagement or personal initiative or any of the 100 other variables that I could select? Well, the way to go is to look at literature. Always start with your logic when you do research. Look at literature, see what has been found in I&O psychology in the field of business administration in the last 5 decades, and study that and then build your conceptual models, and then based on that research also include the relevant control variables if you have access to that data. When you make a conceptual model, I would really advise to go to Google Scholar, and I put the link on the slide. On Google Scholar, look for meta-analyses on the topics that you're looking for. If you look for turnover, you'll find multiple meta-analyses, and the best one is from 2010 that shows and that identified all the drivers of employee turnover. Or alternatively, if you want to predict sales performance, there are meta-analyses that list all the drivers of sales performance that have been researched for the past few decades. So these meta-analyses are very, very useful. Go to scholar.google.com, type in meta-analyses and the keywords or the key concepts that you're trying to measure. Read up on the literature. There's quite a few articles and papers readily available that you can just download, that you can look into, and already learn the key findings just by reading that abstract. So go out, do your research, then build your conceptual model, keep it simple, and then have at it, have fun. I hope to see you in the next bonus lesson. Bye bye.